I know, I get that. So,
All right. Why don't I see? We want background music. It could help cover up the crap that I got going on over here. Let's. No, I don't want background music. Pause. All right. Now I want to find my countdown. All right. I'll do the countdown again, and then we will talk about something growing need for mentorship.
ah, isn't that
All
quite
right.
like the same? All of these things intersect so much, right?
It's
So,
it's becoming easier. But I like the flow, and what else helps too. Like when I'm listening back and I'm editing these, I'm like, oh, okay, that could be a good conversation for next time. Um, Lots of thoughts come to mind. But I'm going to play the countdown, and then we will do our thing. Hello, and welcome to Logistics Lens. My name is Victoria Sostri. I am your host, and I'm joined today by Bob Jarrett, CEO of Hatchway Trade Group. How you doing today, Bob?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
I almost jumped out of the camera angle
Oh,
because a
thanks
wasp.
for thanks for continuing to have me on.
Absolutely. Today, we're going to talk about the growing need for mentorship in logistics for logistics professionals. And this is a topic that's near and dear to me, like most of the topics we discuss every week. Um, but specifically because I came into this industry with negative knowledge, so little it was negative, and a lot of the things that I learned were trial by fire. And there have been people along the way to help me. And those people I'm like forever grateful for the time that they have spent explaining to me concepts that they probably thought like this is so simple, it should not be this hard. Um, but grateful nonetheless. And so I know that our industry is, because there's so many niches that exist, it can coming in as a newcomer is it can be hard. It can be challenging because you have to build that knowledge base, right? And so, and for someone like me, I consider my space to be a little bit more like international. You more domestic, you have that trucking side, and so like that's kind of where, you know, the joining of the minds, come together, so that way we can share our niche experience, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I'm happy to talk about this with you today, and I think that it's something of interest for you that you've wanted to do for a while now.
I think that, um, yeah, mentorship is how to run my business. Hatchway Trade Group. I want mentorship to be the the key difference between, between me, and that's what's going to differentiate HTG from anything else. Is that uh, we want to rethink how we're doing things in the corporate world to move into the future, and that is that no matter in mentorship, it's the human factor that means something. To win, you understand that you're not always right, but somebody else new to the industry or new to what you're doing needs to have that some insight that's going to help them improve. It's not like you tell them that, oh, this is the way things are done, and so this is the way you have to do them. That's not what mentorship is.
It's
That's not even good
dictating.
leadership. So it's important to me that mentorship collaboration is the way that we're doing business. So going into the future, and that's I think for me, that's how I want to leave my legend.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so important. And there's, I mean, maybe infinite, I would say infinite ways to do things, to get cargo from where, originates to where it's going to go. Um, and there's so many things that can go wrong. And I think being creative and being in a space where you're allowed to be creative and to seek mentorship, and even just knowing that it's readily available, I think makes a big difference in the careers of our industry professionals. I don't think that mentorship is, while it happens on a very informal basis, which is how I've seen it. Like maybe if I've had like a one-off request or something like that, or I've needed assistance, um, I know that I can get it when I need it. But I think that it shouldn't be as a on an as needed basis. It should be something. Um, it should be something that's more frequent than that.
mm-hmm.
So that way, it's almost so you can measure progress. Um, and also use it as that sort of collaborative outlook, not outlook, collaborative, I guess outlook maybe, um, on what it is that you're trying to grow for your book of business or your territory or whatever that may be.
That's true.
I
So
have,
go
sorry,
ahead.
continue your thought. I'm going to be moving, but don't let that distract you
Okay.
because I just
So
realized my computer's dying.
ah, so well, I think the things go hand in hand from where we spoke previously uh, about collaboration
Hmm.
and how we partner and we understand and we trust and build those relationships. I think that when mentorship is very similar, we have to take what we know and also very similar. I think leadership is also working to find that way to give back to everybody around you. When you hire somebody to be your employee and you expect them to come in and start doing the job the way you see it being done,
Hmm.
but yet you don't talk to them about you can be demanding and say I wanted you to do it this way. There's no flexibility or I think mentorship is the best way to lead. Once we learn about people's personalities and how we work together in our first meeting and in our subsequent meetings, we have to then start figuring out everybody's level of comfort with each other and our abilities to understand what the jobs are, and then pass on our thoughts about how the job should be or how the job should be done, but also give them the ability to try things a little bit different way, to add that in there and be patient with them. I think that's part of that mentorship is given the time to explore and learn a little bit. That it shouldn't.
Absolutely. And
So
also
yeah,
seeing like like if they're trying something new, maybe it's not going to work, or maybe it does. Maybe it works, and it ends up being so great. But I still think that people need to have the freedom to figure that out, to figure out what works
yes,
for them and their process. Like, granted, sometimes we work for these organizations or, for businesses, another small business or whatever it may be. But that doesn't mean that our own process and what it is that we do every day has to be so uniform, so to speak.
or that we're the only ones that are right.
Literally, okay, yes, that was my that, that was me trying to say it nicely.
Yeah, well, I had to be put in my place a few times. So
Well,
over the years,
hey, you know
you
what?
know,
We all do. I've been put in my
yeah.
place too, whether it be by the
So
customer or by managers. But that's how we learn, right?
that is.
It's how we learn. It's
So,
how we grow.
and if we do it right, it's more. It's not. It doesn't have to be negative when we do it. If we do it
Correct.
right, and that's what makes it mentorship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a huge difference between getting disciplined and learning through mentorship.
Yes.
And I think that that's so important to understand. That's what mentorship should be. You should not be coming to a space that's supposed to be open for mentorship and fear some sort of discipline like you would if you're coming to your, let's say, direct manager. You know what I mean? It should be a place that is for learning.
So, well, and I think sometimes we see that today, and more. I mean, consultants are everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
And trying to find out. It's one of the things that I've done, and one of the things that's always been difficult for me is, and it doesn't seem to be as much so for other consulting firms, is that to monetize that finding a way not to give it away for free. So part of the reason why I have so many licenses is because when I was mentoring somebody or consulting with somebody, I didn't want to charge them direct. I didn't want them to have to pay out of pocket for the advice that I was giving. So if I had all these services that they could use in the process of learning from me, then that allowed me to earn, the commissions off of. So I've never been a good insurance salesperson. I was never a good producer at all. So not in the way that going out and selling policies. So and or trying to trick people into in an ethical way, and I don't know how it's done, to trick people into buying the higher value policy so I would have more premium, or so that I could get more commission on the premium. I was never good at that. So I had to have that. I had to have the all these other little services, being a notary, being able to do the tech stuff, being able to help them with their networking, fix computers, in order to be able to get all these, to make money off of consulting. I had to have all these other back-end services that I was able to provide for individual small companies and individuals who were trying to start a company. So, because I never thought that, you can go down the street in most towns and find somebody who'll set a company up for you, and they might charge you an arm and a leg. The average fee being somewhere between $750 and $1,000 to establish an LLC or something like that. And and you pay all those fees. And when I realized that, we could do this and it would take me 10 minutes, 15 minutes in paperwork online and paying a couple $100, I get, these people were charging $750 for that same thing. So they were pocketing like $500, and I couldn't do that. So I had to add other services into all these little things in order to get them there. And so, and I wanted to teach them along the way that it wasn't, it wasn't just all about them paying me money in order to get there. So, so I never charged people directly as a consultant or the companies. I charged them for the other services that I did for them. And then when I maintained that over time, I learned that, okay, it's better to pay in a subscription form. So, so in that subscription form, when you have a bunch of people paying you a little bit, and that all adds up. And then you have all these people that you're working with, and they come to you for advice. They come to you for whether it's financial, personal financial or professional financial or operations or in the trucking. And so that's where over time I learned that consulting is mentorship. So that's the way that I want to continue to move forward now. And the reason that even though I still have RL Jarrett in the background and people who come to me for advice, I want to do HTG, and bring HTG forward more with a focus in, I think in the bigger picture of that. Instead of just being me, I want to partner with other firms and in order for us all to be helping mentor each other and bring forward and give back, so to speak. And I think that's what mentorship is about.
Yeah, no,
And I went on
absolutely.
one of my rants again.
No, no, you didn't. No, but that is, for me, that is super important about mentorship. And um, everyone has their own experience, their own perspective on the industry. And that's something that grows with the ability to kind of stretch and do and try new things and learn from our mistakes. As I mentioned before, you can't go 9 years in an industry and not make a mistake. If you did, power to you, but I don't know. Maybe you're lying to yourself. I don't know. Um, it's just, there's just so many things to account for on a regular basis. And so it can be very overwhelming if you don't have a mentor. And so when I first started my career, I was automatically given a mentor, and this was outside of international. I wasn't given a mentor when I started in this space. I also, admittedly, I know that when it comes to teaching or feeling like you're teaching, you have to want to do that, because if you don't want to do it, it could feel like a chore. Like, I was asked early on in my life, especially with a degree in English, are you going to be a teacher? When are you going to be a teacher? What age group are you going to teach? And I was like, hell no, I don't want to be a teacher. Not anywhere near being a teacher. But I learned over the course of my career that I needed to choose that. I don't want to be told to be a teacher. I don't want it to be assumed for me. I wanted to choose that. And in doing so, it has helped me to kind of figure out what I want to share, where I want to grow too, because I think teaching is learning and learning is teaching. Um, because we continue to grow our understanding and our knowledge of these areas that we're mentoring in, right? Our perspective continues to change. And you
Right.
mentioned in one of our previous chats that over the course of owning a business, whether it be like a small truck, we'll say for instance a small trucking company, you know, you mentioned that in 30 years where you started could be a lot different than where you end up. And I think that that's so natural, and it should be, because in certain ways your skills have they should evolve. Your customers should evolve. So I think if we
Mhm.
look back, like for instance, if I look back at 9 years today, and if I was in the same spot that I was 9 years ago, I'd be completely shocked, because that would mean, knowing what I know now, that would mean I probably didn't challenge myself at all. Um, First and foremost, in so many different ways, whether it be with the work that I'm doing, the skills that I'm learning, the people that I'm in network with. Um, but it would also mean like that I'm probably still the same that I was when I was 23. No, man.
Uh,
I don't want to be the same person I was when I was
that's
23.
where, if I only knew then what I know now, the things I do differently. So
Seriously. My brother shared a he's big into personal development too, and he shared it was a ball on a track, and the track was split into two, and on one side the ball was just falling in a straight line, and then on the other side it looked more like a roller coaster, so it was like this, and the other one was just like on a slant, and both of the balls were released to roll at the same time, and the ball this would be a great time for my editor to put this
yes.
video that my brother shared in. Um, and so the ball that was going down up and down the hills ended up reaching its destination faster. And so in this video, it was used as a metaphor for success. Essentially, the ups and downs that we experience in life get us where we're going quicker than just, going in a straight line or a slanted line or whatever the heck it was. I don't remember if it was a slant or not, but definitely wasn't bumpy. But and I just thought that to me was pretty profound, because I've had a lot of challenges over the last 3.5 years, and in an article I recently kind of recounted them, and I was like, damn, it's been a rough 3 years. Like, I can't believe this has been my life. But I don't think I could have gotten through gone through what I went through without mentorship. And I think that that's huge for people to understand when we're going through the ups and downs of our lives.
I could I I could see where I had a few in my past, and the ones that I would equate to mentors, uh, and how they helped people that I had wanted to learn from. They weren't necessarily pushed. They were people I looked up to that I wanted to learn from, and then um, somewhere along the line, I said in 2008, I think in that failures, a lot of us failed in 2008.
Yeah.
Uh, you know that I decided I never really wanted to work again. I didn't want to. I didn't want to be tied into somebody else and have somebody else determine my direction any longer. And so, I haven't really had. I failed a bunch of times since 2008 in my little things, and I always say. Uh, I'm going to get back up each time, and I'm just going to start making money again. And it may not be the same way, but I'm just going to figure out how, and somehow or another, I just keep figuring out how to make money. So that keeps me going. Is it always that I can't say that I'm rich? I can't say that I'm wealthy. I think there's a difference between the two, and I'm definitely not monetarily, anyways. But I think through people and friendships that's been built over these years, that it's more important that than what coming out to the money. Being able to be confident in ourselves, understanding who we are, and finding that balance in our lives, I think is more important than the figuring out where the money is. So if we're doing those things right, eventually, and we're working at it, eventually the money's going to come somewhere. So, and for anybody who says it doesn't, it's just because they're not putting forth the effort.
You know, okay, so you bring up a good point. Another good point. It's going to have me ranting in a very not positive way.
Is
But
that
I was
right?
thinking, yeah, in whatever
I'm
negative
still waiting
way.
to see
I know,
that.
I know. I try so hard. Um, but I was thinking the other day about how, sorry, so we were just talking about the evolution of a business and how where you start, in 30 years, you should probably be on a different path. It is okay. It is natural. The same thing for people. I think if you can look back and, like I said, if I was the same as I was when I was 23, Lord help us all, it would be a whole disaster. I would still know negative information about logistics. I would have ruined so many shipments, and customers all over the world would hate me. But that's not the path that my life set on. And so when we think about the evolution of our careers, of our businesses, we have to also think about the evolution of ourselves. And so many times I heard growing up, people can't change. I don't believe you changed. Or now that you changed, you suck. Or whatever it is, people like, or I don't like who you are now that you're not the same that you were 10 years ago, or whatever the case, or you're too ambitious. And I always hated that narrative. I hate it so much because I don't understand why there is this um, negative understanding of what it means to change. And I mean, granted, people can go, you can grow into a person that's not likable, right? It
Mhm.
could go and it can go in the opposite direction. I can see that. But the idea that we stay exactly the same, I just think is so unrealistic. And that's another reason why I think mentorship is important. And it's also another reason why I think our mentors should change with us.
That's true.
I
That's
it,
true. We're going to need a different type of mentor for different parts of our lives and different subjects in our lives, right?
like
And
and like I can't seek mentorship in logistics for the most part from someone who's not in our field. It's too specific. Unless I was trying to get into some sort like a specific vertical. You know what I mean? Like maybe. But I have learn things from people that are outside of my industry that translate into my industry. So that's why
Yeah.
I don't necessarily always seek mentorship um, within the industry. And that's why I kind of like to play around in small business, so to speak, because still getting their perspective and their understanding on what's happening in the world, I think, is very important, at least for
I
me.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I think that there's different worlds within worlds, so
Hmm.
to speak, right? And
Paradigms.
we all need to find where we perform best in
Yeah.
there. So I can tell you that I'm not fond. I spent 12 years in the corporate world, I would say, and for a corporation, and I'm not fond of that. I'm not fond about just being an employee.
Me either,
So
Bob.
and it feels like it felt like I was settling. So like I was settling for something that and I could never figure out what I was settling for at the time. And then when I started doing things on my own, even though I mean, even when you're on your own, you still you're still dependent on others. It's not like you're just doing something unless you're carving something and everything depends on you carving something and somebody else is taking it and selling it or something and giving you the money, and then you're dependent upon yourself and the carvings you make. But in logistics, we're dependent upon each other. Whether we, so our clients are our bosses, so to speak, in some avenue, but we can also fire our clients, and I've done
Which
that.
you're fond of. I was going through some of our transcripts over the weekend, and that one stood out. And I'm like, I know that I have to put something together around firing a client, and I have too. I never looked at it that way, but I have as well. I definitely like, and I was saying, like, that's kind of harsh, but then I'm like, actually, it really isn't, because some people are just impossible to work with, and they don't need to be anywhere near what I'm trying to create. Sometimes I just feel like it takes way more energy than it needs. And that's one of the conversations that I have so often with small business, is that it's okay to weed out the customers you don't want in order to make openings for the customers, the partners, the mentors, the collaborators that you do want. We
Right.
have to be able to identify what we don't want. And that's another way that I think mentorship helps us, because it's all processing time when you think about it. Like I was thinking before when you said that when you were working for corporate, you felt like you were settling and you didn't know what you were settling for. I was thinking that would be a great point for my editor to enter, like my brain going, because yes, that's how I felt too. It's like you're waiting for a promotion, you don't know if it's going to come. If you're waiting for someone to retire, are they going to retire? Because let's be honest, I've seen people ride out some of these positions forever, and good for them, because they're well paid, they got great benefits, and I get it. I'm not saying that I don't get it,
Right.
but for someone like me who has a patience problem and also and is also an overachiever,
I
I
get
want to
that.
yeah, I want to be able to go where I'm going, and I want to be able to, identify new lanes and be creative on how to get where I'm going. I don't want to be restricted by a corporate environment. And I think in a lot of ways I did myself well, I learned a lot. So I will say that. I learned a lot, but now I'm in a point in my life where I'm ready to kind of figure out what the next chapter is on my own. I want to write it for myself, because I don't want to settle or feel like I'm settling and have no idea what I'm settling for, because that is a rut in itself.
I think that's where one of the things I know I don't know if you're getting tired of hearing it from me, that
Never.
I say all the time. What we want to do is be able to help each other build our books of business.
Yeah,
Because if it's your book of business, nobody can take it from you. No
absolutely.
corporate, no, it's faceless corporations. Most of them don't have a face, and I know that sometimes. I mean, we really don't see the face of anything except Elon Musk, and you hate him or love him or whatever. He's done great things in his lifetime that's changed all of our lives. And
I'm
not that I
starting
want
to
this.
realize that I have a mentor type because you have said like 3 things that I have heard other people say to me in the last like 2 weeks. It's specifically the Elon Musk thing. Like
Well,
literally almost verbatim, Bob.
there's a lot of things that that people that are out there that we all look to do
Yeah.
things, and it's somebody to compare.
Yeah.
You don't look at. I don't look at Elon Musk and see somebody who's did all this work and created these great things. What I see from Elon Musk is somebody who's been able to build fantastic teams that took his idea and built his idea.
That's right.
And so he had to always has had to trust whether it was whatever it was. Wow, I'm at a loss. The company that he built that ended up becoming PayPal, wasn't it X.com, like what we have again today? I'd have to look at that and look at my history on that. Maybe
That's a
somebody could
great
correct me on
question.
that. But I think that, he had X.com, which became PayPal or somewhere in there, my memory in the 90s.
That would actually be
So,
pretty cool if it is, because then it came full circle for him. And I have no idea, but I think that that's pretty I think it's pretty awesome.
so we all trust for a long time. Look what PayPal has done. But if he and somebody else that he was working with hadn't actually started it in the first place, it wouldn't have become PayPal, right?
Absolutely.
So, and we see these great people that in our lives that have built or started built, but they had to trust other people in order to be able to build what they were building in their team. And it's great to be on a team, and they don't always all stay there. And they've had these great opportunities. I don't think that they were Elon or Bill Gates or anybody was. I think that what made them different was that they were in the right place at the right time. There's a lot of people that could do the same things and maybe could have been there if they were in the right place at the right time.
And willing to put themselves out there, because it's a lot of
A lot of
trial
people
and
do
error.
that. Yeah, and that's what we see. We can call him a serial entrepreneur, but he's been successful. I'm one, and I haven't been as successful. So
Yet you don't know what's
Yet.
coming. You don't know.
we don't know what's coming. So I'm just going to keep doing what I do,
That's right.
and hopefully there'll be some success. But like I said, success isn't always measured in wealth or in financially. So, but as we talk about mentors and who they are, it doesn't have to be somebody that's necessarily directly in our lives. We can, and we can look at them, and some people would call them heroes or whatnot, and they say never meet your hero because
your icon, yeah.
Or your icon, and I bring up Elon, but he's not necessarily. I don't know if he's a good person or not. I just like some of the, and I'm probably going to be one of the last people to buy a Tesla, because the Tesla truck looks stupid. So the fact that it's made out of stainless steel means it's too heavy. And I just don't, I can't see that, and so, even though they say it's an American company, I'm stuck in my little rut when it comes to vehicles. So I can't see that. I'm not a fan of PayPal. Matter of fact, after you get so many junk PayPal emails and people trying to invoice you this or invoice you that, I don't do anything with it. So I'm just not a fan of those things. And I'm not a big fan of X. I don't understand, or Twitter, whatever it was before. I don't understand why everybody needs to make little comments about everything all the time.
All the time.
It's like
Because
put their 2 cents in on everything.
everything.
So, put your phone down for a minute.
Yeah. No, and you're right.
But now here I am, after years of not being in it. I'm in social media. I'm now starting to get into social media a little bit, and in not just professionally, but also what I'm doing in my personal life. But for me, it's all about finding the balance in all these things.
Yeah.
We sit back, and when I say balance, the one thing that comes into my mind is scales of justice, right? And how they need to have both sides in order to maintain that balance. And that's what we need to bring into our lives. And mentorship, being a mentor, having a mentor, are important in finding that balance. Understanding that we don't all know. I'm not all knowing, right? So there's going to be somebody that knows and they're an expert or something else in something else that I may need. And so I need the mentorship in there. and then there's going to be other people who look up to me that I need to mentor. And this is how we give back. And it's that human factor of being able to come around. We talk about collaboration, which we did last time, mentorship. I think it's the same thing. They all come back together. That mentorship and collaboration can be one and the same for a lot of things that we do. It's all in how we discuss it with each other. So whether we can look at each other in the eye and say, "Hey, I don't know this. Could you help me with that?" But maybe I can help you with this.
You're going to get in what you put. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. Right. And your collaboration, your mentorship. And okay, now I remember another rant that I was going to go on today, another negative rant. I feel very strongly against people who don't want to share their knowledge with others. It irks me to no end.
And companies.
Huh?
People and companies.
People and companies. And listen, over the years, I have tried to convince myself that I can understand why they don't want to. We repeat a lot of the same themes, the themes that we have in our, our working mentor relationship. They come up a lot in these podcasts. Okay. I understand people don't like to repeat themselves. I'm learning that's parenthood. I'm learning that's management. I'm learning that that's relationship with others, right? So like, in order to grow community or a network, inadvertently, you're going to have to repeat yourself. If you walk into a room full of 100 people, which I've done in a networking event, it's like, depending on how you work the room, you might have to introduce yourself to every single one of those people. So you need to, depending on how many you really want to meet and what you want out of it. So we have to get comfortable with repetition. And we also have to understand that repetition it's how we learn, it's how we commit to memory, and it's how we implement these things into our lives, because there's learning, there's memorizing, and then there's implementation. And all of that comes through repetition. And so the biggest reason, before I go too far off, that I don't like when people don't share their knowledge is because it comes off as rude. Most of the people who have not wanted to share their knowledge with me have always been rude, quite frankly. They're upfront about it, which I get. You know what? Do you be honest and upfront? But it is rude. Secondly, because you're denying help. And I think that if someone is coming to you and has the courage to ask you for help, I don't think it's our job to outwardly decide that they don't deserve it. That's just my own personal opinion. We could refer them to someone else. We might not be the right person to help them. We might not enjoy that person that's asking us for help. There could be a load of reasons why you want to deny them, but you can send them somewhere else and tactfully handle the situation. I also feel as though mentorship is a huge, it's a wealth gap closer. To me, there's so much knowledge that has been kept from people, so much information that has been kept from people that has helped to create gaps in learning, in wealth, and in life and experience.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it quite that way. So I was thinking when you were saying it, that what came to mind to me was the difference between optimistic people and pessimistic people.
And then there's usually people who don't want to help, they are more on the pessimistic side. And I will say, as a recovering pessimist, there was time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm glad you can admit it.
And listen, I'll be as honest.
It's possible to change.
It is. It's possible. Listen, okay. I was once referred. Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. Once referred to as the April Ludgate of my office. Anyone? Do you watch Parks and Rec?
I can't say that I have. I've never seen an episode actually.
Just Google April Ludgate and then try to imagine me that way and see if there's a delta. God forbid. I hope there's a delta. But anyway,
I have one of those in my experience, like what you're describing. So I just can't. I I prefer not to think about people like that.
Yeah.
That always coming at everything from the negative angle, and always holding on to what is theirs and not sharing.
Yeah.
So, and that's what it comes down to, because they're so afraid that if they share it, it'll be taken from them.
Well, you know what? Okay. So, all right, we talked about bias, and this part of our conversation did not air
Oh, yeah.
just yet, but I will tie it in. And this is one of the biggest reasons I feel so compelled to mentor. So I mentioned in a post a couple weeks ago that I am learning more about warehousing space because I want to be able to offer commercial services to logistics businesses. I want to be able to help them if they branch out into, warehousing and all that, with your warehouse knowledge on how to run the warehouse and my ability to find it. I feel like we can create some dope logistics businesses for some of these people who have dreams to branch out. But in my reading, I came across so much information that I know for a fact I was not taught growing up, or the way certain certain bits of information were not made accessible, and the way in which these things were made inaccessible. And it was in all the instances, especially for real estate that I found, it was intended, like the way in America before a certain time, if you were a person of color, the owner of the home could put into the deed that they will not sell, that they're not going to sell their house to a person of color or of a certain religion. Um, and that was totally legal. And I know that mentorship and keeping a person of color from buying a property, it feels like it's way off the mark, or that they're not the same thing. But to me, somehow it does. And by gatekeeping what I know and what I've learned over the last 9 years, I feel like in a way that I would be contributing to someone's lack of success by not sharing what I've learned. And that means so much to me.
Yeah, there's definitely enough to go around, and there's no reason to hide that. So, yeah, and you're right. Bias was what caused that. No matter what, you can name the bias all kinds of different things, but that's a bias is a bias, and we all have them. Yes, so I'm biased against certain people, usually pessimists. I'm just not.
Me too. I guess I admitted I'm biased against pessimists too.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not that negativity that comes from that. I don't think that life is too short for us to spend too much time on with negative people, with negative energy, and I've never liked it. So, and there are probably times that I was the negative person. Don't get me wrong. I think we all can spend time there, but it's now to me today, there's no space for that, for that negative thing, for that hiding anything. So, and I think that for me, being open pretty much about everything is it's for me. When we talk about mental health or physical health or
health,
in our personal relationships and work relationships, what we learn from one, we can use in the other, and we can find this balance in here that allows us to not have those negative outlooks for anything. So we can do things that we're giving back in different ways. Maybe it's not always about giving money. It's not always about showing up and giving time at every little public event, or it just we need to find this balance that works for us in a positive outlook, in enjoying life with friends and family and with coworkers and with things that excite you, because logistics is never and trucking was never really a lot of work to me. So when you go to work in the morning or you go to your place of business in the morning and you love your day goes by so quickly that you're like, what happened? I still have so much to do, but now you need to have goes. You need to find that balance between that work and the family life and things. And I know that there were a lot of times when my kids were young that I spent away, and I thought there was just one point that if I was home on weekends, they were lucky to have seen me, and I always said that because I was a trucker, right?
Yeah.
So as a trucker, and you're on the road all the time. Even if I wasn't on the road, I could have been traveling for other forms of business within being a trucking, within trucking, and that was always a road warrior for a long time. I was, between flying and driving and everything else, and I missed things in there because of that. But I also experienced things that helped me be who I am today. So I wouldn't change any of it, the good, the bad, because that's who we are. All of those things mixed together and finding our way to being in this, I don't know, hopefully we can find our balance in there somewhere and come up with things that are best for us. And balance requires us mentorship.
Yeah,
And,
I think so.
and not just in logistics, because logistics is pretty much in everything we do. So, but not just in logistics. Finding that balance and mentorship is important for all of us.
Absolutely.
And I go on another rant. So many stories.
No, I mean it's honestly so true. And I do think in a lot of ways that even our weekly chats are informal mentorship, right? Like one of my mentors, like I said all the time, he doesn't know me. I've never spoken to him, but I listen to his podcast like 4 times a week. And he's taught me so much, right? So it's like we have these chats and we're hoping to pass on what we know, in the form of different topics that we go over every week and how they relate to logistics. Um, you
See, I
know,
want to do more of this. And, I enjoy being on here, but I want to do more of this with other people. And I always talk about building the roundtable.
yeah,
That and having these different entrepreneurs from different parts of the country, and we sit at a round table and we talk about what's going on with us, so whether it's a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and it doesn't have to always be the same people. Just being able to have these discussions on a broader level and being able to have enough patience to sit back while you're doing this group, depending on the size of it, and listening to the points of view from everybody else who's at that table. So like you and I do with each other. So
absolutely.
it'd be nice to have 2 or 3 others, maybe 4 or
And
5, I don't know. And of course it would take more than just an hour.
it would likely, and that is a unintended segue into logistics legends. And so, logistics legends
And
is
that's new, right?
it is
You
new.
just coined that thing,
I did.
and now I became one of them recently.
Yeah,
Yes.
you are, and you're going to help me um, to mentor and teach this group of legends that we're creating. I would not consider myself a legend. I think I have a lot to learn in order to get there. Um, I feel like there's certain milestones that I've not thought of yet or not even achieved that I need to be able to push myself towards. And I don't want to do it alone. And I don't think anybody should have to do it alone. Um, I've always considered myself to be a high performer. Now, yes, there have been points in my performance where I have not been on the high side, but being a high performer is choosing to you're choosing to commit to something. You're committing to the process. You're committing to the growth, to the learning, to the discomfort, to showing up, to getting a mentor, to knowing when you're in your comfort zone and need to get the hell out of it. Um, and I think if I had to describe, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the pandemic threw our entire industry out of its comfort zone. And we all experienced it together. And while we work in a space that is constantly disrupted, no one was expecting what came from the pandemic.
That's
Um,
true. And and it didn't affect us the same way that it did everybody else in other
Correct.
industries. because
Correct.
all these other industries were shut down, but we weren't.
Yep.
We still had to be there doing it.
Yep. And
And
understanding what was happening on a global level. And that was actually
right,
when I started to grow my network into truckers and internationally. I mean, I've always had international connections, but now the relationships were my own. They were no longer like agents that I was arranging bookings with, for my shipper or anything like that. It was people that I was meeting that work at ports. They're sending me live videos of congestion in Hong Kong. Like it was it was interesting time. But ultimately, I think there's a lot of industry professionals that could be high performers that A, don't realize it's possible to be a high performer in an industry that's mostly controlled by things that we don't do. Um, and B, don't realize that there is a group of people that is just like them and wants to perform regardless of what's happening in the industry.
right.
And one thing for me that I've been pretty proud of over the course of my career is that even though there have been certain things affecting the market or whatever it was that I was working in, maybe the market was underperforming for some reason, but I was not. I've always strived to know where the industry was underperforming so that way I could compare my own performance to it and try to rise above it. And so that to me is, I guess, a definition of a high performer is like knowing where everyone else is and then deciding to be better on your own.
Yep.
And so high performance doesn't need to be, it doesn't need, it won't necessarily mean that, you make an exorbitant salary or a giant bonus. But wouldn't it be great if you could? I mean,
Oh, those things, that's like winning the lottery, though. So, you know,
I can't
it would be
guarantee,
great, but
but like if we don't challenge ourselves to get to those next levels and unlock those doors, how do we're predetermining that we won't get a salary bump, that we won't be in a room or a space to get a nice bonus. You know what I mean?
well, then it comes back to, for me, what you're saying brings me back to my thoughts of um, the entrepreneurship of
Yes.
building your own book of business. Everyone
Yes.
building our own book of business. You see, uh, back, a century or so before, and for a long time, uh, people, craftsmen, and everything was done more of a barter thing. There wasn't, dollars, gold was off, and jewels were obviously great, but, craftsmen were, accepted, and craftsmen worked, whether they were the blacksmith or whether they were doing, operating the local mercantile or whatever. They were a craftsman in their area, and everybody had to rely on each other, and that was what happened in communities, and so when we think of community, we often think of our local town or whatnot, but
Yeah.
what we have here in logistics and what we're trying to build here is a community of like-minded professionals that are all sitting here working, where hopefully we can all be building our own, becoming craftsmen in our own little niche of the world, and how we relate to each other.
Yeah.
It's part of that, how we get our craftsmanship out there,
Absolutely.
and so we're just putting a different spin on what we do. So we talk about business, and we always take a look at, it disappoints me when I go to one of a convention somewhere, and the only speakers there are people from large corporations
Oh
that
my
head up
God.
departments and stuff, and they have no idea, because they went to college and they grew up in that, and all these people, and they never worked outside of that corporate environment. So did they ever actually get out there and get their hands dirty, like guys like Jack Welch? I don't know if you know him. He was ended up one of the top CEOs at GE before it was all broke apart and everything.
Mm.
And he worked from the factory floor to the top. Or if we take Bob Stoll, who was Roadway. I don't know if you're familiar with Roadway as a company in the United States,
Mm.
but it was Roadway Yellow became YRC. Bob Stoll was the CEO of Roadway. He worked his way up worked his way through college on a dock and worked his way up through the business to become the CEO to help orchestrate the merger between Yellow and Roadway. And he went on to found Port Logistics Group. Is that the company? Yeah, and then later I think they merged with somebody else. I don't know what he's doing now. I would hope he's retired comfortably, But anyways, guys that I had looked up to at different for different reasons, but they did work their way. They understood what it took. Bob understood what it took to work the dock in a cross-dock situation in an LTL company in a union environment. He understood that. He worked his way up in there. He did sales. He did the whole thing before he made it to the top. So he's somebody I'd want to listen to. Listening to somebody who's bounced from large corporation to large corporation and ends up into a VP role at some place and now suddenly is speaking. They have something to say, but do they have the experience of the small person? The majority of us are down here in the small companies. The majority of us are in small business. That's why the United States relies so heavily on small businesses. It's where all the real money comes from in tax dollars. So it just gets tiring to listen to the same people speak the same mumbo jumbo about large corporations and how you get there, when they weren't the ones that built it. So to me, that doesn't make any sense. And we should be bringing in, and when we talk about mentorship, some of these people who've worked their 30 years and built a company that was successful locally, even if they never took it to large corporation, but and how they did that and how they were able to pass that on. Some businesses are multi-generational and never make it past mid-market. They've been around for 100 years.
And there's still so much beauty in that. And that's what I love talking to some of these multi-generational businesses, because it blows my mind. But I think another thing that irks me about going to conventions and seeing speakers that are not diverse or speakers that are all from large corporations, it irks me because they almost 100% of the time they pay to be there. They pay for that slot that they're speaking, and they may or they may not write the stuff themselves. Once you're up at a CEO level, there's usually, and at a big corporation, they probably have a team of people that's putting together a speech or content that's directly related to whatever it is that they're speaking about.
And so some of course.
And so some of those thoughts are not even their own. And so I don't want to surround myself anymore with people who don't have thoughts that are not their own. And I feel very strongly about that, because I really think, being someone that comes from a corporate world, they want suggestions, but in order to implement those suggestions, it takes way too long. And then by the time the suggestion is even considered, it's already outdated. And it's what is the point? Why am I thinking about these things for you guys to just twiddle your thumbs and just let time make us all obsolete? It doesn't make any sense. And that's another real reason why I am very big into mentorship, because people need to know that their perspectives count, that their experience count, and they should have a place to share that with their network, a safe space too, because there's a lot of unsafe places out there that are masking themselves as psychologically safe when they're not.
So we can hear that the conglomerates of the world, they're running things. They have the deep pockets where they can pay off governments and whatnot in order to be able to get there. At the same time, we see them, these governments try to put their foot down on some things, particularly some companies. But when we take that world look, that global look at things, that's where, for every dollar that our government spends back home, they spend 100 outside, and a lot of it goes to these corporations ultimately they're running the show. Here I am. I'm going to try to avoid going off into into some kind of political rant. So, and what's wrong with the world today? So, but it is what's wrong with the world today. So, is that kind of thought process that the people at the top of the large corporations are the only ones that can do it. They're that elite, and the ones that the people selected to represent them are the elite. And when we start treating them as our heroes, and put them up on a pedestal, then we're doing ourselves a disservice when we do that. When we put them up there, like we could never attain that. Like it's not possible for any of us to be that president, that CEO, that that person that was in the right place at the right time, who done the right thing. Before Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, we had MySpace, and it was doing exactly what Facebook did. I never understood the difference. I just never really did. And and why Facebook took off, and why the other one fell to the wayside in the process. And I expected that at some point Facebook would fall to the wayside, and we've seen them all come up with all the social media things. And even though I didn't quite understand it, all the others with Snapchat and X and all those kind of things, I'm here looking at them, and I just don't understand why we need to put so much out there. I understand LinkedIn. I understand we're marketing, we're doing business there, but I don't understand why all these other people need to put every aspect of their life on there.
Because it's the influencer economy, Bob. If we're not talking about ourselves and what we're doing, what are we doing?
Well, that's true, and so here we are. I'm embracing it, here, because that's what
I'm mostly teasing.
So, well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't understand why we needed it for so long, and
I know.
Maybe that was me being stuck in my place, and then getting my head turned about. I mean, would I be doing this? I was planning on it. I was thinking that for business, we needed to see what the next level was going to be, and how social media was going to affect business, and we're seeing this change in not just. We start with LinkedIn, but we also then ended up finding this way out into the Facebook, into the X, into what I think I have besides YouTube. I think I now have an Instagram account. I don't know what it's for, but or why it's
figure
there.
It out.
For some reason, I haven't figured it out at all. But for some reason, I created an account and attached it to the Facebook thing, and I figured, okay, what's that? More people will see it then, right? So I'm trying to do that. Hopefully, and you're trying to do that. So together we're trying to do that, and we want to grow this thing that we have, this idea about mentorship, about fellowship with like-minded people, and in order for us to all be able to somehow work together and grow our businesses, and and not continuously give all of our time and effort away to the people who were in the right place at the right time, who built the next big thing.
And that's the other thing too. When it comes down to, I guess we'll call it gatekeeping. I'm not going to go on another rant, but I will say that I feel also very strongly about representation. As a minority woman in logistics and supply chain, we literally cannot be what we cannot see. It's one of the biggest reasons why Barbie could not remain white. You know what I mean? It's in our industry, it's in our culture. We need to have diverse representation, even in our mentors, because it makes such a difference. I'm so lucky, and maybe and my husband says all the time that it's my career is luck, and sometimes I get really mad at him because I'm like, I've also worked my ass off to get where I am. I've been in so many rooms that every single woman I know has outwardly told me they would not waste a second in the rooms that I've been in. And so when someone tells me that my career is luck, I do get a little pissed off by that. But admittedly,
luck. I guess, right place, right time would be a bit of luck. So when we talk about some of those people who made it big, and as I mentioned their names, that is luck.
That is luck.
And that's right place, right time, right everything worked out for them that, was there,
that got
you
them
know.
there. And that's why I can't necessarily be like so upset, because I understand how, well, maybe not really, but I know that I see where luck plays into it. But I also know that I've worked really hard. And I'm very grateful because I feel like I'm at a point where I've worked hard, I continue to work hard, but as a woman in this space, I'm able to take advantage of opportunities that I didn't even realize would be on the table for me. Opportunities that I don't know what to expect, because no one that I'm in community with has ever had these opportunities and can guide me through them. And that's another thing too. Like, we talk about being first generation. Well, I have people in my network that are first generation. Um, and we talk about leading in the next generation of supply chain professionals. And I am at a point where sometimes I just take the opportunity because I didn't think I would ever have it. Or if I turn it down, what am I doing for the minority woman that's waiting for this opening to be presented for her too? Right? It's like I think about it like a an undeveloped piece of land, right? Like, in order to put a house there, it needs to be cleared. So sometimes I like to think about the path that I'm on as a clearing, so that way anyone who's following me can just find the road.
Yeah, road building.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. For me, and when was it, last week, or week before, we spoke about diversity.
Hmm.
For me, well, I just obviously I don't see a lot of what you've seen, your struggles, and I'm not like, I guess, everybody else in the fact that, it doesn't matter to me whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you're what, color skin somebody has. I know that being this white is painful, and you don't like to go out in the sun. So it's not, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So you see, I go out for a walk in the morning, and if I don't put sunblock on, I look like a tomato, right? And my hair bleaches out, and then I don't look like I have eyebrows or anything, or else I look like I have white lines there. So when it's I like I said, I wouldn't wish this on anybody because it's painful. And so anyway, and I know there's chemicals I can slather all over my skin to keep that from happening, but I prefer not to put those chemicals all over me.
Fair.
So anyways, it's not something I think about when I'm interviewing people, when I'm discussing things with people, when I'm thinking about who I'm going to work with. On that aspect, I think that it comes down for me about whether or not I feel comfortable with somebody, and then their knowledge, and pointing, and the direction kind of they're headed. And if we're headed in the same direction,
Yeah.
we help each other out along the way. I think that's more the way. And I would hope, and I would hope that they confirm this, that my children are the same. That and maybe even less biased than I am, because as I told you in that other one, I grew up with those biases, and they were they're not logical to me. So when I see it, I see it happening, and and I've been involved in some of it. To me, it just doesn't seem logical. What's that have to do with whether they're man or woman, or whether they're somewhere in between? And this whole, because everything runs on a rainbow. We have, just like politicians, the left and the right. There's so many different levels in between. From skin color, there's so many different levels in between. It goes all the way, running every gamut. So and I think that no matter where we go in there, we're all going to be somewhere on a spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all is. It's a spectrum, even our IQ, everything. So everything about us, and it's our experiences and who we've been with, how we were raised, what we seen, when our eyes opened to different things, and we like had those epiphanies that took us to the next level.
Yeah.
That I think, but all those things make up who we are.
Yeah.
And learning about people and their experiences and how they got to be who they are, to me, is something that's very exciting. And that's where the mentorship and the collaboration and everything comes together to make us better, to make us more human. So
Absolutely.
can't forget that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope I don't do any disservices to anybody out there, because I know I have my biases. So I just think that maybe we how we work on them, how we accept them, and how we can discuss them openly is what allows them to mean less to us,
Yeah.
less to our lives.
Absolutely.
So
And how we get better and how we grow.
that's it.
It's a lot of honesty that
That's just how society gets better. That's how we all get better. So there's no one right answer. It's all of us together working together.
absolutely.
So we the people.
And figuring out how we relate to people and how we can make those changes across the greater industry, which is essentially
Yeah,
my goal.
it's these discussions like you and I are having that we need to have on a much broader scale. And I see that as I go through nowadays, and I watch a lot more YouTube videos and seeing that, and how bringing people together to have these like Discord,
Mm-hmm.
to have to talk about the hard things.
Yeah,
And that's something that we need to do. Otherwise, we'll never get past those hard things.
that's right. That's right. And with that being said, a lot of the hard things that we experience in our industry, as I mentioned before, a lot of them are not even our fault. So it's like if we get caught in it, we could just be living reaction to reaction to reaction. And I think that in itself is just way too stressful for anyone to deal with on their own.
We got to break free of the indoctrination that was given us.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't ours. We got to figure out how to get past that. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it's this industry or any other,
Absolutely.
and it's important. The only way we're going to do it is sit down and talk about it. So, and to bring in everybody else. So
Absolutely. So I hope that we will see some new faces for our July cohort for Logistics Legends. We will meet weekly, and we'll have another one starting in August. Maybe we'll see some different faces, maybe some new faces, but ultimately, everyone is invited to collaborate and grow with us.
absolutely.
Absolutely. All right, Bob. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate your
Thank you.
honest chats as always. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Thanks, Bob.
Talk soon. Bye.
All right.